welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie and I'll be your astrologer today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This is going to be my preview of Neptune Retrograde in the sign of Aries. If you guys like this content, you want to see more of it, make sure you subscribe to my channel, click the bell button below, and join the cosmic crew. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and like this video, and consider dropping me a comment below and let me know how you guys are dealing with the fog. Now we're going to be unraveling this Neptune retrograde. It's going to feel a little dreamy and kind of like we're waking up to something fiery and transformative as Neptune turns retrograde for the next several months in the sign of Aries, retrograding back into Pisces. Now this is going to be starting on July 4th, 2025. And this is a cosmic event that happens every year. We see this retrograde. And really what its purpose is to shake up your dreams and spark some kind of bold new action, possibly even lifting the veil of illusion. So if you're an Aries or a Pisces rising, lock in, get ready to kind of get into this. But I think we're going to be seeing some effects for all of the rising signs. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the themes of the Neptune retrograde, some tips and tricks, what to watch for, and predictions for the 12 rising signs. So you want to catch that at the end. We're also going to talk a little bit about how this is going to be impacting us collectively. So let's go ahead and get into it. Smash that like button if you guys are already feeling the haze of this up and coming retrograde on July 4th, 2025. Now, really since March of this year, if we go back to the end of March, we saw Neptune first ingress into 0 degrees of Aries. So we've kind of gotten familiar over the last several months with this particular transit. Neptune will be turning retrograde this month, and it's going to be starting around 2 degrees of Aries. So the first thing you need to know is the area of Aries in your chart. This is where we are kind of reevaluating something, waking up to something, becoming aware of maybe where we have been kind of asleep at the wheel. Obviously, Saturn is there as well, and Saturn will be turning retrograde later this month in July. And it will be retrograde all the way until the December period of 2025. So it will go direct on December 10th, 2025, when it stations direct at 27 degrees of Pisces. So if you have any personal planets from 26 to 29 degrees of Pisces, or 0 to about 5 degrees of Aries, you are really feeling the effects of this particular retrograde. And it'll be about 5 months long that we're going to be going through this. Think about what's been happening since the end of March. This is the first time we've actually seen Neptune in Aries since the 1860s. But we're going to be watching some of the themes that have been kind of playing out back then, kind of come back up in real time. Now, when it retrogrades back into Pisces, this is going to be happening in October of 2025. It will actually then go direct in Pisces, and it will stay there until January 26, 2026, when it re-emerges into Aries, and it will be staying there for the next several years. We will actually see Neptune stay in Aries until about 2038 to 2039. There will be a brief period where Neptune will go into Taurus, it will retrograde back into Aries, and then it will move into Taurus in 2039. So we've got some time to kind of work with this transit. Now we know that Neptune rules anything kind of connecting to dreams, spirituality, as well as illusions. And when it goes retrograde, it's going to almost be like in reverse. So there's going to be this sense of lifting the veil, kind of seeing through some stuff where there's been some issues. And personally, I think it's going to be a little bit easier to navigate in Aries because it's a cardinal kind of fire sign. We kind of get lost in the cosmic kind of mayhem when it's moving into Pisces. So you guys really want to work with this for the next couple of months while it's in this particular sign. Anyway, when it retrogrades back, and when any planet retrogrades, that means we need to revisit, review, rework. So I think the positive is between now and October, we have the ability to kind of take action. When it gets into Pisces, which will be around the 22nd of October, it's going to be going into an area of your chart that's a different house, and it's going to be wrapping up some unfinished spiritual business. So think of this period, the next couple of months, as like a preview of Neptune's kind of long-term stay in Aries. And that'll be really kind of kicking off in the beginning of 2026 as we get into the end of January and then eventually February of next year when we see the Saturn and Neptune alignment at 0 degrees of Aries. Anyway, I look at it as a cosmic teaser. I'm wondering what is it teasing? And I've been kind of thinking about this a little bit. And I want to kind of break down some of the themes that we're going to see with these particular signs. To give you guys some examples, I'm going to be really talking about this from the perspective of Aries and Pisces risings, because this is going to be impacting you guys, I think, the most. Now, for like an Aries rising chart, Neptune's going to be retrograding through your sign. Saturn's going to be joining pretty soon, and this is going to be going through the first house. So this is the house that deals with identity. It's connected to your appearance, also your physical body. So it's going to be intensifying themes revolving around self-reflection. Now, this could potentially be causing some confusion about who you are or, how you present yourself to the world. And the retrograde could actually lift some of the illusions, really pushing Aries risings to confront their authentic kind of identity and shed some kind of outdated self-image. Versus the Pisces rising, who is ruled by Neptune in terms of modern day astrology, you guys will be seeing as this retrograde is happening, it's going to be retrograding from your second house of personal values, anything revolving around self-esteem, money, and financial things. And then it will be retrograding back at the end of October into obviously your sign. So what this is going to be kind of representing is that there's going to be some changes revolving around the way you see yourself, potentially becoming more aware of some of your subconscious emotions, perhaps even some spiritual awakenings. You'll feel a pull to really resolve some of these things before we get into the beginning of 2026. But I don't think these are the only two signs that are going to feel it. I think if you have any personal planets, really within 0 to 5 degrees of the cardinal signs, so Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn risings, or placements are going to be feeling this as well. And that's because you have both Saturn and Neptune that will be retrograde, creating oppositions or squares to your personal placements. So definitely take a look at your chart, see if you've got anything around the first 5 degrees of the cardinal signs. You're going to be feeling it. But Aries and Pisces risings are definitely, I think, getting like a VIP pass to the cosmic roller coaster. And a lot of that is because this transit is asking you to really reevaluate who you are truly. I think it's a time to really step away from illusions, especially when it comes to your identity. And you guys are going to kind of be leading the charge and kind of showing the collective how we can kind of break down some of these issues where we're not seeing ourselves so clearly. Obviously, Pisces got a little bit of a break here, but you're going to be having that, Saturn and Neptune retrograde back into your sign. So you'll be finding that the second half of 2026 is about wrapping up this cycle, in particular with Neptune, which has been a 14-year kind of spiritual enlightenment period where you've been really focusing on a renewed sense of personal authenticity. So I'm counting on you guys to kind of show everybody else how to work through this. Now, stay tuned. I'll take you guys through the 12 rising signs so you'll get to see how it's impacting everybody. But the general themes, I think, kind of connecting to a Neptune retrograde is a 7-month period where we get to have clarity over illusion. Obviously, I remember telling you guys this last year that Saturn and Neptune in Aries is going to be much more direct, kind of in your face, more action-packed, giving individuals, right, Aries, the sign of man, the opportunity to really reevaluate their boundaries, their beliefs, as well as their own personal image. So when it's in this sign, it means that, perhaps unlike other retrogrades, Neptune will actually lift some of the fog. Neptune is known for fog, confusion, illusions, dreams. And I think this retrograde can really help us see reality much more clearly, especially on a personal level. This is also about where we take action, what we believe in, what our personal kind of beliefs and philosophies are. And I really encourage you guys to use this time to really question your vision. Perhaps ask yourself, where we're being a little bit more delusional, where we have some unrealistic dreams, maybe questioning conspiracy or fantasy, and trying to find a way to better align with our own personal truth. Now, it does give us opportunity for spiritual reflection as well, because this retrograde is going to be encouraging introspection. So practices like meditation, kind of resting, recuperating, taking time to be alone in reflection can be really positive. This can give us the opportunity to really reconnect with our intuition and learn to discern true desires from escapist tendencies. Now, Aries influence, obviously, I think in recent months, right, we've had a lot of retrogrades here, especially when we saw Neptune first ingress into Aries. We were in the midst of, an eclipse that was happening in Aries. Venus is retrograde in Aries. Mercury is retrograde in Aries. So there's been a lot of, what do I believe in? Who am I? What's going on? Is this the new reality? I kept telling you guys 2025 is the dress rehearsal for 2026. But this period, I think, really gives us the opportunity to reevaluate where we're going to be taking some kind of action, where we are pushing for action-oriented spirituality, urging us to act on our dreams with courage, but maybe avoid impulsive or ego-driven kind of decisions. Now, in order to do that, we have to really focus on dissolving boundaries. That is kind of the theme of Neptune. And this retrograde is a little bit different flavored in a sense where it's going from the first sign of the zodiac, crossing that 0 degrees Aries point, going back into Pisces. So the rest of this year is going to feel like we are completing or concluding something. We're finally, as a collective, releasing something. And I think a lot of it is going to be about dissolving separation and really blending personal will with universal purpose. In Aries, it may feel challenging, especially because we can see a lot of waxing and waning when it comes to our energy. We can also see that there's some ego-driven kind of motives that can come up in the process. So watch for that as well. Keep in mind also that while we are watching this Neptune retrograde, not only is it very close to Saturn, which I feel like is giving us like a sense of better groundedness, more self-awareness, and also I think personal accountability. And these retrogrades are going to actually be kind of dancing with sextiles to Uranus and Gemini, which we're going to see in July, which really opens the door for new communication, connection, and also learning opportunities, as well as some sextiles that we're going to see to Pluto in Aquarius, which is going to give us the opportunity for some collective shocks and surprises, but also this unearthing for the collective of where we have actually given our power away. So all these planets are kind of dancing, making aspects to each other side by side. I really want to focus more on the retrograde in Aries, and as we kind of get closer to once it's back in Pisces, we'll kind of tackle what that means closer to the fall. But what you guys need to know is that, when we see planets that are going over the 0 degree Aries point, which we saw in March and April, and we're going to see this again, Saturn and Neptune retrograde over this degree, shift happens, okay? This is one of the cardinal points. It's connected to the world axis points. These are what mark the seasons astrologically: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And this is a very potent degree, okay? This is almost seen as like the starting line, essentially, for the zodiac. So it's symbolizing new beginnings and very potent, raw, Martian energy. So obviously Aries is the sign of war, right? We have seen lots of manipulation and kind of war tactics and things kind of going on as Saturn and Neptune has been there. Individuals confused, questioning what's going on with the state of the world, whether or not we're on the precipice of war, whether or not we can believe Saturn and Neptune in some of the things that are going on, and also feeling maybe personally a little restricted or feeling like we're losing faith potentially in our own personal vision, our responsibility for some of the things that are going in the world, or what we believe in when it comes to like leadership. So when we see this retrograde over this degree, it's going to be particular right around mid-September into the end of October. So like September 14th through around October 22nd, 2025. This is the time that you guys are going to want to watch because it's going to amplify that 0 degree influence. I always see 0 degrees of Aries as like something kind of starting off with a bang. So this is likely going to be sparking collective and personal resets. And you'll see similarities to some of the things that were going on in March and April of this year. So I liken this to kind of like the cosmic restart button for new dreams, new identities, and also societal shifts. But it's retrograde. So it's really asking us to prepare, to pause and reflect before taking action, before acting on some of the things that are going to be coming in the beginning of 2026 next year. Now, this point's energy is especially potent for the cardinal signs. So once again, if you have anything 0 to 5 degrees of the cardinal signs, this is really marking a very rare alignment that is kind of setting up between now and February of next year. And it's going to symbolize, with Saturn and Neptune coming into conjunction at this degree, major structural changes with leadership when it comes to personal identities, when it comes to people's personal visions. And if you guys haven't seen my Saturn and Aries webinar, check that out. I've got a Saturn and Aries boot camp, which talks a little bit about the fact that these planets are moving side by side. And I'm going to be doing a webinar specifically on the Saturn-Neptune conjunction later this year, because it's a really rare astrological transit. We see that happen quite literally every 37-ish, 38 years. But this one is happening at the 0 degrees Aries point. And I've been kind of theorizing for some time that this is going to be a restart for humanity. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, I think about Neptune retrograde and I think about it's like waking up from a dream. And I referenced Saturn and Neptune in Aries as being like these fever dreams. I don't know if you guys have had, like, you've been really sick, you've been having this fever, you're in bed and you're like delusional and you think that something is going on that's not necessarily going on and you're kind of in and out of it. That's very much Neptune in this sign. And when it's retrograde, it's going to really help us clear out the fog, figure out what's real and what's fantasy. And thankfully, Saturn's there to kind of aid in that. I think in Aries, it's all about taking bold, inspired action when it comes to our dreams. But the retrograde is like saying, hold up a second, like we need to reflect first. Are your goals truly yours or are you choosing someone else's script? So the retrograde is, crossing this point, bringing us an opportunity for a reset, and then we get into the fall of this year. And I think we're going to see a major surge of fresh starts, new identities, and maybe even some major global shakeups. Now, it's intense, especially with Saturn kind of joining in on the party, helping restructure all of our world. So definitely buckle up for that. But in terms of world and personal predictions, I referenced the 1860s at the beginning of the video. This was the last time that we saw Neptune that was in the sign of Aries in this sign. So, cultural shifts happen when we see Neptune going in and out of different signs. And we previewed this a little bit, during this retrograde, I think, where it's going to be echoing its last transit of 1861 to 1875, and we saw Neptune in Aries. Back then, we saw the American Civil War. We also saw major technological revolutions like the typewriter, the telephone, and other ways to be able to kind of connect. So I'm expecting some bold social movements, especially with aspects to Pluto and Aquarius, as well as Uranus in Gemini, real focus on individualism, activism, but also the potential for conflict or idealized violence due to Mars's kind of connection to the sign of Aries and its Mars-ruled nature. It is possible that we could see technological and creative innovation as well. So think new artistic trends, music or tech. We might be seeing merging, and this will be reflecting the area of Aries, which can be this kind of like pioneering type of spirit. But in a nutshell, it's about illusion versus reality. So we will have to work a little bit harder when it comes to differentiating what is fact versus fantasy. This means that misinformation battles will intensify, but the retrograde can really aid in cutting through some of the digital noise and questioning some of the narratives behind some of these stories. Now, personally, I think it's a little different. The main theme for me, as looking at like the Saturn and Neptune retrogrades that are going to take place in July, is identity reevaluation. Okay, this basically means that individuals are going to have the opportunity to reassess their self-image. That means things like their goals, and also reflecting on their authentic self, and shedding or dissolving outdated roles or societal expectations is very likely. This also means that we have the opportunity to take some kind of spiritual action. Now, maybe less external, more internal, but there will be a push to really act on our dreams with courage. We have plenty of time to work through this before we get into February of next year with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. But know that the retrograde is really urging us to reflect, so that way we're kind of avoiding any reckless moves, right? And in order to do that, we need emotional clarity. So thankfully, something we will see in the fall of this year is when Saturn and Neptune are back in Pisces, we will see Jupiter moving into some trines with Saturn and Neptune in the fall. So you're going to see this closer to like end of October going into November. So I do think we're going to be much more emotionally in tune, compassionate, sensitive, and healing. But this means that throughout the retrograde while it's in Aries, what we need to do is release old fears or subconscious patterns. Become mindful of when they're surfacing, the impact that has on us, emotions like anger, frustration, hostility, how it impacts our body and our vision for the world. This will be offering us a chance to heal and really align with our true purpose. So I'm anticipating, that this particular transit with Neptune and Aries just in general will be sparking some major revolutionary moments, similar to what we saw, with the Civil War and when it kicked off. But I'm thinking this time around, it's going to be different. It's much more like bold personal accountability, activism, new tech, and trends, and maybe, some fiery new kind of genres or types of art or music or films are going to be kind of key as Neptune is connected to these topics. Watch for the retrograde to really help, us fact check illusions. So things like social media filters and fake news we're going to be more aware of, and I think less susceptible to believing. And on a personal level, I think we're going to be questioning who we've been pretending to be, and really asking ourselves if we're living our truth or someone else's. So use this retrograde as a chance to heal some of these wounds, clarify your dreams, and prepare for big moves before we get to 2026. I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of your personal dreams? Comment below. What illusions are you working through and ready to ditch? Now, let's get into the rising sign predictions. Let's take a look and see what the theme is going to be for Neptune retrograde. Obviously, special emphasis on my Aries and my Pisces risings because this impacts you guys the most. But if you have any personal planets 0 to 5 degrees of Aries, you're under a Neptune transit, things can feel a little unsure, kind of cloudy, confusing, low energy, and even secluded. Neptune can be about isolation and seclusion. And I will be taking you guys through the 12 rising sign predictions, focusing primarily on the Neptune retrograde in Aries, which will be taking place between now and October. But the retrograde in itself is going to happen clear until December of this year. Now, I would listen to your rising sign. That's going to tell you exactly which house the retrograde is taking place in. And I will be giving you guys some themes, predictions, and tips on how to navigate this particular transit. I'm going to be starting first with my Aries and my Aries risings. So let's get into that for you guys. And obviously, like I said, it's pretty personal for you guys because it's happening in your sign as well as Pisces sign. There we go. And Neptune will be retrograde for you, Aries, in your first house if you're an Aries rising, all right? So something to kind of think about is Neptune rules your 12th house. So you've got your 12th house ruler on your ascendant if you're an Aries rising. So you are going to be more aware of whether or not you're allowing some of these confusing feelings, emotions, fear, isolation tendencies, self-undoing tendencies. You're reflecting on some of that stuff. Now, the first house is the house of the self. It's your body. It's how you look. It's how you kind of show yourself to the world. And I've seen this for a lot of Aries placements recently as kind of working through an identity crisis, right? There is a crisis, or there is an opportunity and an awakening that's kind of taking place with Neptune moving through your sign. A little bit different because Saturn is there as well. I think for a lot of you guys, it's about your perspective when it comes to who you are out in the world, what you're doing professionally, who you are if you're changing your career, and maybe questioning who you are versus who you've been. So I predict for my Aries risings that you'll be facing moments during this retrograde of self-doubt or maybe body image struggles, but gaining clarity on your authentic self. So the retrograde might feel like a fog is kind of lifting, especially in October when Neptune returns back to Pisces. It's possible that like a meditation practice or a spiritual practice or a mindfulness routine can be really helpful. Even resting, recuperating, all of that stuff can be really helpful for you guys as well as you kind of move through this shift. And my recommendation is to take time to be alone, get the necessary rest that you need. It can also be really beneficial for you to really avoid any impulsive makeovers, maybe be reflecting on what aligns with your soul, and try some kind of meditation or mindfulness technique that you can reconnect with your inner spark so you can really kick off 2026 next year exceptionally clear about who you are and what you're doing out in the world. Good luck. All right, we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing Neptune retrograde in your natal 12th house. Now, Neptune is associated with the 11th house, which is about your goals, your dreams, friendships, networks, anything of that nature. And it will be turning retrograde in your 12th house, which is a little bit more subtle. It's behind the scenes. It's private. And Neptune is really inviting you to meditate and reflect on some of your subconscious dreams and desires. So your subconscious exploration is going to be a theme during this retrograde. And it's all about diving into your dreams, uncovering your fears, as well as hidden truth. Now, I predict for Taurus risings that there could be some very vivid dreams or intuitive hits that guide you. Perhaps when Neptune shifts back into Pisces in October, it's going to be kind of stirring up some spiritual insights, releasing old baggage, reconnecting with spiritual groups or like-minded people, becoming more aware of some of your goals. But something that I think about with Neptune being in the 12th house for a lot of you is like that time that you need behind the scenes to, rest, recuperate, strategize, be working on things behind the scenes. And that's allowing you to have better opportunity to kind of connect and collaborate with other people in the fall. So my recommendation is to create a dream journal, especially with Saturn and Neptune in the 12th. Maybe it's going to be about, reimagining or restructuring something in your bedroom. Maybe it's about returning to church or spiritual practice. This can also be a time where you could be trying therapy for, becoming more aware of subconscious patterns that are coming up, or you're kind of getting in your own way. But just slow down. Don't rush making any major decisions, and ground yourself if you can in nature or with fitness. Good luck. We have got Gemini and Gemini rising. What's up, Gemini? You're going to be experiencing Neptune retrograde in Aries in your natal 11th house. Now, for you guys, Neptune is directly tied to your career, your professional life, your reputation, what you do out in the world. And it's going to retrograde in the house that deals with your social connections, your dreams, goals, friends, and anything revolving around your connection with people socially, right? So as Neptune retrogrades through your 11th house, something that's really beneficial is that it is going to still be in a sextile with Uranus coming into your sign. So the more that you're acting kind of independently, spontaneously, I think you can kind of navigate some of these changes going on with your social groups or some of your professional goals. I think really this is going to be about finding clarity when it comes to communication and community. So maybe cutting through some of the social noise is going to be some of the themes for my Gemini risings. I predict for you guys that the retrograde is really streamlining your thoughts and making it easier to express yourself. October, when we see Saturn and Neptune drop back down into Pisces, that's going to be really about working out or kind of finishing out something going on with your professional life and your career and your reputation. A little bit more difficult to navigate as it's going to move through a mutable sign. So if you're a late degree Gemini, sun, moon, or rising, it's going to be coming into some squares. So it's in some friendly aspects right now in your chart. So I recommend working with it. Practice clear, honest communication with other people. Avoid overthinking, especially when it comes to, giving presentations, showing up for friends. Maybe consider joining a group that aligns with your values or reconnecting with old people to focus on your goals. Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries in your natal 10th house of career, reputation, and professional goals. Neptune's connected to education, travel, and your belief system and your higher values. So if you happen to be an early degree Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, Neptune is squaring you, as is Saturn. And I know it's been a little tricky in recent months, especially with the squares to Jupiter in your sign. But now you're kind of coming out of some of those confusing times, and you should be finding that you're more optimistic in the months ahead. For right now, as we watch Neptune retrograde through the 10th house, it's going to be about redefining your career as well as your public image. So this is like stepping into your spiritual purpose over the next couple of months. Maybe this is infusing, your professional life with idealism, but the retrograde is pushing you to really align with authentic professional goals. I predict for my Cancer risings that you might find that you're kind of questioning if your career reflects your true calling, and the retrograde is going to give you clarity and help you shed illusions revolving around your status and whether or not you're on a safe path. So when Neptune re-enters Pisces in the fall, it'll go into your 9th house, where honestly, it's going to be trining Jupiter in your sign. I feel like this is going to be really highlighting more spiritual and philosophical type insights. And it's going to be really positive for you guys when it comes to education, travel, legal matters, anything revolving around publishing. So reflect on this retrograde, this Neptune retrograde in your 10th, on what lights your soul up professionally. Don't censor your dreams, explore your creative or humanitarian side if that's something that you want to kind of explore professionally. And I would really recommend, connecting with like-minded people and avoid chasing prestige just for its own sake. Okay? Good luck, guys. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You're going to be experiencing Neptune retrograde in Aries in your natal 9th house. Now, obviously, especially if you're an early degree Leo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, Saturn and Neptune are still trining you. So you may not feel the impacts of the retrograde as much as other people. You feel like you're still really kind of harmonizing with some of those fire trines. But the 9th house is about realigning your creative and anything revolving around your beliefs, anything connecting to travel, anything revolving around your personal philosophy. And Neptune is connecting to this transit, which is the ruler of the 8th house. So it's about your beliefs about intimacy, security, money, investments, all of that stuff. Now, Neptune retrograde in the 9th house means that you can find that, you're returning back to your studies, you're returning back to a place that you have visited before. Maybe it's giving you the opportunity to reconnect with a teacher or like a legal figure. And gain clarity on, personal vision and travel as we get into the future. My advice is with this retrograde to really rethink what your personal belief system is, to reevaluate or reconnect to education, that could be the most fulfilling. Maybe because of Neptune's time to the 8th house, you're trying to figure out how to afford that, if it's possible, if you're going to make any money, going back to school, or if you're going to be able to afford some of the travel or trips that you're kind of planning on doing. But I think it's actually going to be really good for you guys, and it's going to give you the opportunity to really embrace what's going to be a new personal belief system going into 2026. I would really recommend just double and triple checking anything revolving around travel plans, especially if you're going to be traveling internationally or if you're planning on going to school or taking a new course. Really make sure that it aligns with your personal belief system. Good luck. All right, we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. What's up, Virgo? You're going to have Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries, and it will be retrograde in your natal 8th house. And obviously, Neptune is connecting to relationships, one-on-one relationships, therapists, spouses, clients, business partners. And it'll retrograde in a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes you guys. So sometimes it can be a little bit of a blind spot when you have planets that are going through Aries, because the 8th house is where we can't really see anything shine. But the 8th house deals with personal intimacy, okay? So whether it's vulnerability through communication with partners, sexual intimacy, trauma, working through grief, other people's money problems, or anything revolving around joint finances, investments, taxes, or inheritance, that's all getting kind of reviewed. And I think a lot of this is about intimacy and shared resources and learning to trust your heart and trust other people, as Neptune's connected to your relationship house. So, this particular retrograde is going to be highlighting for you guys where boundaries might be too weak or too rigid. Obviously, Neptune is there. So, that connection to Saturn is about whether or not you feel like you can really open up and be vulnerable with other people. Now, in the fall, when Neptune shifts into Pisces, it's going to be going into your opposite sign. So if you happen to be a late degree Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, 26 to 29 degrees, you're still going to be under a Saturn-Neptune opposition. However, I think that the eclipses in the fall are pretty positive for relationships. I think that really what it's showing you is that just partnering with somebody is not enough. There is like a need to really, bare your soul and be vulnerable. And in the fall, you'll have the opportunity to clarify relationships and that connection that you have with other people beyond the physical connection, the more emotional, spiritual, financial side. So your guys' goal during this retrograde, some of you guys might be reviewing, your investments. You might be reviewing something when it comes to taxes. But you might also be focusing on setting clear emotional boundaries, and that this is about reflecting on what you truly value in relationships, and maybe realizing that in order to be with somebody else, you have to be a little bit more vulnerable and expose some things that's going to kind of make you feel vulnerable, but that can actually lead to closer relationships in the long term. Good luck. We've got Libra and Libra rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries, and this will be taking place in your opposite sign in your 7th house of relationships. Now, Neptune is connected to the 6th house, which is things like health, habits, coworkers, things revolving around responsibilities, sometimes, sacrifice, wellness, all that stuff. And if you happen to be 0 to 5 degrees of Libra, sun, moon, or rising, it's a little bit more personal for you because you do have this happening in opposition. Oppositions are relational. So it's things that are coming from outside of you. So whether it's working with a therapist, it could be a spouse, it could be a business partner. There seems to be like this sense of needing to, throughout the Neptune retrograde, reimagine your partnerships. Maybe it's about balancing self and others. Now, these others could be, beyond just romantic relationships or committed relationships, working relationships, and who you're working with and whether or not, it's a healthy balance when it comes to working together. I do predict for Libra risings that you guys will be having relationships that are going to be facing a test of authenticity. In the fall, when Saturn and Neptune go back into Pisces in your 6th house, this will definitely deepen, spiritual connections or closures. There's going to be much more of a focus on stability when it comes to health habits and routine. It will be harmonizing with Jupiter, so it's good news when it comes to your career and your health. But relationships are still going to feel like a big question mark. Some of you guys are going to be longing for relationships. Some of you guys are going to be in relationships going, do I still feel connected to this person? Are they being honest with me? Is this a good, healthy relationship dynamic? Your goal here with Neptune retrograde, I think, is to communicate your needs openly in relationships and avoid people pleasing. Focus on mutual respect. And if you're having issues in relationships, couples, therapy or meditation or kind of journaling and like working on that emotional, spiritual bond with a partner can be really beneficial for you guys at this time, and expect some of the truth to be revealed about some of your relationship dynamics. Good luck. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You guys will be experiencing Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries, and this will be taking place in your natal 6th house of health habits, routine, work, pets. And it's in a sign that in conjuncts or quincunxes you. So similar to like Virgo, you guys are both kind of sometimes getting blindsided with some of the transits that are happening in Aries because it's in a sign that you don't really have a lot in common with, and feels kind of irritating when you have planets that are in conjunct or quincunx your sign. However, Neptune's purpose, I think, throughout its retrograde is really tying in some of the themes of the 5th house to the 6th, because Neptune is the ruler of your 5th house of creativity, joy, self-expression, personal hobbies, dating, children. So while Neptune retrogrades in your 6th house, this is about transforming your daily routines, infusing work and self-care with meaning. It might also mean that you're reevaluating your relationship to your health and your habits. It can be revealing to you and showing you, what habits are actually good for you creatively, where you need to make more time for dating or creative self-expression, or where there could be some health or lifestyle things that are getting in the way. So I predict that the retrograde is going to spark new soulful routines. So it could be like spiritual workouts, hot yoga, something connecting to water and fitness, flow type of things. It could be creating some confusion revolving around a health matter that could be hard to diagnose, or some challenges revolving around personal accountability in the workspace and maintaining some of your timelines. But in the fall, it'll shift back into Pisces with Saturn, and it's going to be harmonizing, especially if you're a late degree Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising, with your chart, trining that. Jupiter will be trining as well. So I predict for Scorpio risings, a lot of this is looking at your health and your habits and your routine, going, what is working, what's not, what's sustainable, what's not, how can I make more time for the things that I love? And I would really start a mindfulness practice. I think for Scorpio risings, and as well as Taurus risings, it's very much about that mind, body, spirit balance. So avoid autopilot habits, maybe make daily life intentional, try some kind of like yoga or breath work that can really help ground you into a routine. Good luck. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries in your natal 5th house. Now, Neptune is connected to your home and your emotions, your family in the past, and it will turn retrograde in a fellow sister fire sign, Aries, in your 5th. So for a lot of Sag and Sag risings, it's going to be about rekindling joy, right? And things don't feel very joyful right now for some Sag risings, understandably with Saturn in the 5th house, but I think that this can actually be more about unleashing your inner child, healing your heart, opening yourself up to the idea of true, authentic self-expression, creativity, romance, right? All of the fifth house kind of topics. It can also reveal to you, some hidden talents or something creative that you have within you that you can start showing your family, or you could start practicing or doing at home. Anyway, I predict for you guys that the retrograde is going to be fueling a bold new creative project, a hobby, romantic risks potentially. And in the fall, when Neptune and Saturn retrograde back into Pisces, it's going to be a much more challenging aspect for you as a mutable sign, especially if you're a late degree Sagittarius, 27, 28, 29 degrees. It will be squaring your sun, moon, or rising. So you actually really want to work with some of the transits during this retrograde now. What do I recommend? Find time or space in your home to do something creative. So this is like dancing, painting, playing an instrument, getting into acting, doing something playful and creative just because. You want to avoid dimming your spark for other people. Create a joy list that you follow. Be a little bit more cautious when it comes to, romance and, taking risks in relationships, especially if you're really focusing on long-lasting bonds. Good luck. Now we have Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys will be experiencing Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries taking place in your natal fourth house. If you're an early degree Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, about 0 to 5 degrees, you're under a Neptune and a Saturn square. A little bit more challenging for the cardinal signs, but something to think about is that Neptune is moving side by side with Saturn. So this is a very personal transit for you. And where it's retrograding is at the bottom of the chart. So this is dealing with your home life. This is your, rebuilding process of your emotional foundations. It's about redefining security. It's about figuring out where home is, how you feel, and finally dealing with the past, fourth house. So home and family life can feel a little foggy, right? And the retrograde can actually give you the opportunity to clarify and create better boundaries. That could be things like with family. It could mean that there's some structural things going on with your home. It can mean you're reimagining where home is. And obviously Aries is starting new. Now in the fall, you're going to see that Neptune is actually going to shift back into Pisces. And this is interesting because Neptune is connecting to your third house. So it can mean that you're thinking about moving. Communications with family can change. It might mean that you're reimagining, what home looks like, or you're kind of searching or sussing out new areas. And when Saturn and Neptune go back into Pisces, it's going to be in a sign that's going to be a little bit more friendly with you, especially if you're a late degree Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising. It will sextile your placements. This basically means that this will give you the opportunity to really focus on deepening emotional roots and being able to communicate and express with family and close relatives how you're feeling, where you're going, what your home life is going to look like. Now, with the Neptune retrograde, it can be a time that you are returning back home, or you're reflecting on your heritage, your roots, or reconnecting with family. It might also be a time that you're thinking about restructuring or redecorating your home, or setting firmer family boundaries. I would avoid old definitions of home right now because that's all being restructured over the next year. And I would really try some grounding rituals or anything involving meditation, water, anything like that can really help soften some of the emotions that are coming up at this time. And if you're feeling a little lost, confused, or lonely, this can give you some insights as to just exactly where or how you're going to go and build your new home or family life. Good luck. Now we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are going to experience Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries, taking place in your natal third house. Now, Neptune is directly connected to your second house of personal resources, values, self-esteem, as well as money. And it is not only conjunct Saturn, which is your traditional ruler, but it's also sextile Pluto in your sign and sextile Uranus, which is your modern day ruler. So Aquarius, you've got a lot kind of going on with some of the aspects here that can really help you work through this particular retrograde. Now, when Neptune retrogrades in the third house, it's going to be about clarifying communication and ideas. Often, I find that this is going to be a transit for clients that's about sparking truth with vision. And Neptune in the third house can bring more of a dreamy, intuitive vibe in how you express yourself. But I think the retrograde is actually going to sharpen your communication skills and your mental clarity. Now, I predict it's possible, yes, there could be miscommunications, right? Or vague ideas that might surface, especially in conversations, writing, or contracts. Keep an eye on communications with siblings and neighbors. That can be a little muddled. And keep an eye also on any issues you can have with vehicles or travel or education plans. But I think by the fall, when Saturn and Neptune are actually back in Pisces in your second house, you'll be reassessing how your words align with your values, right? Second house. And I expect, flashes of innovative insight. Just watch for misunderstandings. A tip that I would have for you guys is just to slow down. Choose your words very carefully. Walking, listening to motivational speakers, journaling, especially your thoughts, right? Can be really helpful to kind of channel Neptune's more creative energy. And I would say just trust your own unique perspective, especially because it's going to be sextiling Pluto in your sign. Good luck. And we have Pisces and Pisces risings. You guys are going to experience Neptune retrograde in the sign of Aries in your natal second house of personal resources, values, and finances. Neptune is your modern day ruler. So Neptune retrograde does impact you pretty significantly. And it really impacts you because eventually it will be retrograde back into your first house where you have the North Node. So for my Pisces, this is really kind of signaling that there's about to be a 7-month period of a realignment that's happening when it comes to your values and your finances, likely connecting money to your spiritual core. So Neptune in the second house really can blur boundaries when it comes to resources. And I think the retrograde is actually going to help you get real about your financial situation or your self-worth. Now, you'll be confronting illusions about money or self-esteem, possibly rethinking how you earn or how you spend. And when in the fall, when Neptune and Saturn return to Pisces in your first house, then there will be some kind of tie to, your finances and also your personal identity, and really helping you shed old insecurities about what you're capable of building. I would really recommend, reviewing your budget and doing it with intention, having a much more kind of like mindfulness mindset, minimalist mindset, also revolving around what you truly need and desire. And ask yourself, does it reflect your true values? I would really avoid any get rich quick schemes or undervaluing your talents, and practice affirmations to boost your self-esteem to help you through this time. Definitely circle back in the fall, and we'll talk a little bit more about Saturn and Neptune when it's back in your particular sign. It's going to be very interesting, especially with some of the eclipses that are going to be coming in the fall as well, where it looks like a lot of Pisces risings are completely, rebuilding themselves from the ground up. And a lot of that's not just how they are with money, what they value, but how much they're valuing themselves. Good luck, Pisces. All right, well, what a cosmic ride this Neptune retrograde is going to be. Obviously giving us all a chance to clear the fog and align with our own personal truth and prepare for this bold new chapter coming in 2026. Regardless of your rising sign, I'd love to hear from you guys. How are you feeling with this up and coming retrograde? What are you wrapping up in terms of lessons? And what is your wake-up call that's happening right now? Because I know we're having a lot of them. Comment below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Equally, please give me a thumbs up and like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to see more about me and my work, click the links below and head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I take personal one-on-one clients. I also teach tarot and astrology. I've got personal transit calendars and much more. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter if you want to be up to date on some of my latest, webinars and other things that I'm teaching. And if you want to book a reading with me, equally, we're going to be doing a live. I'm going to let you guys know when we're doing it. We're kind of going back and forth with when it's going to be. But if you're subscribed, check the community tab and you'll see when we're having the live weekly readings this week. I will catch you guys there. And I hope you enjoy this retrograde. Until next time, I'll see all of you guys very soon.